All right, episode 10 of the Sweaty Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Justin. Zach is with me today. We got some NFL news to go over. Some trades went down in our Dynasty League this past week. And then for our main segment, we're going to be ranking backup quarterbacks in the NFL. So this is more going to be targeted towards Superflex Dynasty formats. It's getting pretty deep. See who you should roster, who you shouldn't roster, that aren't just the main guys that are going to be rostered in every league. These aren't buys. These are probably go pick up off the waiver guys. So hopefully we can bring some good insight on that. That'll help you guys out this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to get into it.
All right, NFL news. Really, the only piece of news this week: Steelers signed GM Omar Khan to a 3-year contract. This one's a little bit confusing to me. Seems like the Steelers are kind of stuck on the Tomlin has never lost had a losing season, and Omar Khan, their roster is fine, but it's never we talked about this with Aaron Rodgers. It's never bad enough to get a really good quarterback, and it's never good enough to truly compete. Um, I think it's been like 8 years since they won a playoff game, and yet they've been in the playoffs most years because they're over 500. I mean, there's some consistency here. I think this just kind of gives him the free rein to tear it down after Aaron Rodgers. I don't really have much of a reaction to this news. There isn't really anything actionable that happens for me here.
Yeah, I was excited to talk about the Buccaneers re-signing their coach GM last week because I think that's meaningful. I think they bring something to the team. I think that Omar Khan probably is not as important to the organization as Tomlin is. I think they'd choose Tomlin if they were going to if they had to let someone go, they would choose to keep Tomlin. I don't think this is a big needle mover for me. And I also am totally okay with a team that is consistently good, not great. And has had bad quarterbacks through all of the good, not great. They've been operating with what feels like less than any team with an elite quarterback or even a great quarterback, even talking about guys like maybe Jalen Hurts or Dak Prescott, great quarterbacks. They've never had something close to that. And they've still been good, not great. The Cowboys without Dak, the Eagles without Hurts, they've been some rough teams. So I think that I'm pretty pro keeping Omar Khan, keeping the continuity here. You know, you have something that works. You know, you have a coach that can take a team to multiple Super Bowls. Just need to hit. It's easier said than done. Need to hit on a quarterback. A lot of variance goes into that, I think. But I would keep rolling the dice until you hit.
Travis Kelsey on the New Heights podcast this week was talking about Travis Hunter, and he was talking about him playing two ways. It's kind of a conversation that's been happening ever since he was he was on pace to win the Heisman last year, and everybody said, wonder where this guy's going to go in the draft. And then he wins the Heisman and goes number two after the Jaguars traded up a lot to get him. And the question has really been, does he play mostly corner and play a little bit as wide receiver? Does he play mostly receiver and a little bit as corner? Does he play full time both? I don't, I mean, that can be debated back and forth both ways until you're blue. But what he was saying is if he plays cornerback, teams are just going to be running posts and go routes all game long, just wear him down. Um, I mean, we haven't really seen anything like Travis Hunter come into the NFL. I mean, really the only comp we have is Dion, played a little bit of cornerback, but I think they're going to work it out. And as it stands right now, it looks like he's going to be playing more wide receiver than cornerback. And I think he's a great athlete that it'll take a couple weeks to adjust to whatever he does.
Yeah, I think that I don't know as well as these coaching staffs do about how to attack a player like this. Yes, I think that we're gonna see him get attacked. We're gonna see him be tested. We're gonna see run plays drawn up to just get guards in space and try and get a hit on Travis Hunter. I think that he's gonna get attacked. I think. He's obviously not going to play 100% of snaps both ways. They're going to be smart about where they use him. I think I really like the idea of using him on third and medium and greater in situations where maybe you can run a little more. You could be a little more aggressive with the man coverage with a player like Travis Hunter than you would be able to with like a subpar corner because he is a better corner than a wide receiver, in my opinion. Um, It'll be really interesting to see. They are going to attack him, but the Jaguars are also going to insulate him. bet as best they can. And I'm just going to bet on the talent to win out a little bit. I think that I think he's just too good to be to be beaten by covering go routes every couple downs or having to play 150% of an average player's snaps. I think he's too good that I'm going to say, yeah, he's not going to be worthy of the pick because of that.
So I just wanted to be reminded of what all they gave up. So they moved from up from 5 to 2 to get him. They traded their fifth overall pick, a second rounder. So the 36th overall pick, the fifth overall pick, a fourth rounder, and then their first rounder next year. So I mean, they gave up a lot to get him. They're hopefully not going to try to just wear him out, play on both sides of the ball because they do need him at cornerback too. Their corner room is pretty atrocious, just like their receiver room behind Brian Thomas is pretty atrocious. Um, and so I think they will hopefully not just run him into the ground right away. I think, in my opinion, he's going to play more wide receiver, which leads us into our trades for the week. I traded for Travis Hunter in the first of two fairly big trades that we had this week. So I got Travis Hunter, Jordan Addison, and Trey Benson. Trey Benson was a big part of it for me. I'm the James Conner owner, and I'm trying to contend this year, and I have James Conner, and I didn't have Trey Benson. And that's a recipe for disaster because James Conner goes down week 3. I don't have Trey Benson, and all of a sudden I have two startable running backs. That's not how you win a title. So Travis Hunter, Jordan Addison, Trey Benson. I got a 2028 third and then some fab. I did give up a lot. I gave up Drake London and Colston Loveland um, to Mr. Ledford. Mr. Ledford already had Penix, so he gets the Penix London stack. And I think this is a great direction for him to take his team because he now has Jackson Smith and Jigba and Drake London as kind of his top wide receiver duo. And then Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren. So he has the top rookie tight ends, and he has a solid duo. So I want to hear your grades on this trade. I haven't heard them yet.
Yeah, so what I said, and I started with you, I said, I understand that owning and counting on a naked James Conner is stressful for a contending team, but I don't believe that the answer for that is trading away one of the pieces that makes it a contending team. The running back room feels good now. Feels like a running back room that could upset one of the top three teams any given week. But now the wide receiver advantage is almost gone. Could Travis Hunter explode early and prove me wrong? Absolutely. But I think that anyone whose process counts on that is going to be failed by the process more often than not. I gave this trade a D plus, mainly for those reasons. For Mr. Ledford, I said I think I would have been okay with the haul if it was just for Drake London. I probably would have graded it low, but not failed it. It's harder to overpay for top assets because the market is different when you're talking about guys at the top of their position. With Colston, it feels much more balanced and really, really fits his build. There's a lot of unknown with the deal. The range of outcomes on all three of his players that he moved, Jordan Addison, Trey Benson, and Travis Hunter, huge ranges of outcomes. You know what I mean? Which that
Hmm.
makes it hard to grade. But because I'm using my own median projections of what I think Travis Hunter, Jordan Addison, and Trey Benson are going to be this year, I feel pretty good giving this a B plus. I get why you did it. I'm not. D plus sounds low. It's really the same distance away from a C that a B minus is. You know what I mean? I don't want to be. I don't think it's crazy, but I do think he won the trade. I think that what Drake London is right now is something that I don't even think you're super optimistic Travis Hunter turns into. I think Travis Hunter is going to be great, but as a fantasy asset, I don't think that a guy sharing a room with Brian Thomas Jr. and a guy who is going to have responsibilities on the other side of the ball is going to be as valuable as someone who is the absolutely undisputed dominant number one in their room. I got back more on top, but also gave up Colson Loveland. I think Colson Loveland for Trey Benson is pretty lateral. I would rather be on the Trey Benson side, especially with Colston Loveland. But Jordan Addison, a third, and Fob don't move the needle from Hunter to Drake to me.
That's fair. I think to me the bet is on Travis Hunter being an elite athlete that we've seen. Obviously, the second overall pick, which is the highest any wide receiver has ever gone besides Megatron. And part of that is the positional, like he gives you both sides of the ball, so that's why you trade up to 2 for that. He's just an insanely good athlete, and I think if anything, they'll just put him in high leverage situations. So, like down by the goal line, I think Travis Hunter will pretty much always be in. Third downs, he'll always be in. If he comes off the field a little bit for breathers on a 1st and 10 on their own 40, I'm not I'm not overly worried. Addison is just one of those guys that's just quietly productive. He's been a top 24 receiver every year of his career, his fairly young career, and then we already talked about the Benson handcuff. I think with James Conner's injury history, he ran really healthy last year. Like he barely missed time at the very end of the season. That's not something that I would bet on continuing. And I think Benson has a chance to be, even as early as this offseason, a top 10 dynasty running back. If James Conner starts to fade into the background, Trey Benson really takes over. He's a really talented running back. I think he again could be a top 10. But I could see like there is a world where Addison gets suspended for 4 games this year. JJ McCarthy's not that great, so Addison's a wide receiver 30-ish this year. Travis Hunter's a wide receiver 40 because they play him more at cornerback, and Trey Benson gets no run because James Conner is healthy for the whole year. And then it looks like I lost the trade by a landslide. There's also a world where Benson takes over, Addison is a top 24 receiver again, and Travis Hunter breaks the top 15 because he scores a bunch of touchdowns. I think you said it pretty good. It's really high range of outcomes. I like the bet on my side for Mr. Ledford again. I really like it. So that was the first trade. Well, not chronologically, but the second trade was between Tyler and Trevor. How'd you grade that one out?
So this one, we had Tyler receiving your 2026 first, Trevor's 2028 first, Trevor's 2028 second, and Mike Gesicki. And then
Mm,
what he gave up for that was he gave up Trey McBride and $20 fob. The fob moves are very interesting. It's very interesting seeing how we balance the fob in a lot of these deals. But so how I said what I said was at a time of the offseason where takes are static with no new information and people have all but convinced themselves that their roster fits their team direction the best it can, getting fair value for a stud in a rebuild is impressive. I think you probably could have squeezed them for a little bit more, but this trade made a lot of sense. I'm going to give it a B. That was for Tyler, who traded away Trey McBride. Um,
okay.
for Trevor, I said you paid what feels like fair value for McBride, 2 firsts and a second, but none of the picks are particularly desirable. And getting back $20 fob for Gesicki in my eyes is a win. I think you turned your biggest positional weakness into possibly your biggest positional strength, depending on how healthy your running back room is. I think it was very nice work. I give this a B plus. So slight edge to Trevor, but definitely a win-win trade in my eyes.
I think this is a great trade. I think of all the assets to move, Tyler moving Trey McBride isn't necessarily one that I see at the top of the list, but he got 2 firsts, a second, and Gesicki will probably get flipped for a third and some fab at some point to
If
somebody
that.
who doesn't like picks. Maybe a couple fab. Tyler doesn't really like fab very much, so maybe I think he'd probably give Gesicki up for a third. That obviously was not really a swinging point of the deal, but I think for Tyler going into rebuild, getting 2 more firsts and a second, that's huge. For Trevor, who in my eyes was the number 4. So before I had it, Braden, and then Papa Fee's me, and then Trevor. Now I think I slide into fourth, which is sliding in the wrong direction. But now I think it's Braden and then Trevor. I think McBride jumps him up over his dad into second place, and then Mr. Fiesler, and then me. Um, I just think having a player like McBride or Braden has Bowers, I have Kittle, Mr. Fiesler has Kelsey, which you can argue that this year, but having a player at tight end where you can say it's a pretty good bet that he's going to go out and get you 10 to 15 points, maybe even 20 or 25 every week, or get you that good floor of 10 to 15 with an upside. That's pretty, there's not very many of those guys in the league. And so moving for McBride is an amazing move for Trevor. And like I said, getting the picks for Tyler, it's a great move. I agree that this is a really, really good trade for both teams.
Absolutely.
All right, now we're going to get into the meat of the podcast, the really exciting stuff, why everybody's sticking around. We're going to go over backup quarterback rankings. So the reason that we're doing this is in Superflex leagues and Dynasty, you run into this problem where if you have ten teams and each team rosters three quarterbacks, and a couple of them roster four, you're out of teams. If you're in a 12-team Superflex league and everybody rosters three, you're at 36 quarterbacks. So not everybody even has three starting quarterbacks. Then you run into issues during the bye week. You run into issues when players get benched. You run into issues when players get hurt, where you're not even able to fill a full roster at times if you don't have the right quarterback. So it's good to take shots on backups that you think can become starters, either through injury or a better bet is that you think the backup is just really good and can take over the job and is also fantasy relevant. So calling your shots on backup quarterbacks that you think could take the step can really help your team when the backup quarterback turns into a starter that you can plug into your lineup every week and fill one of those super flex or two QB spots. That's really valuable. So that's what we're going to try to go through today.
Yeah, I fall a little bit on the other side. I not always am trying to mine the waiver wire to try and find the next guy, but I do recognize that because of the situation you kind of detailed, quarterback value is very inflated because of the scarcity there. So I think that turning nothing into something is always nice. Whenever you get that waiver wire guy that turns out to be something, turns out to be start worthy, or maybe you could get a trade value out of him. That's always awesome. But at the quarterback position is where it is the most important. And I think that if you kind of know what to look for, you kind of know how to game it a little bit. You can profit a lot. You can have a lot of microtransactions that kind of add up to an overall increase in team value over time.
The guy that jumped off the board to me was I think it was from you. I traded Ridley in a third and I got Daniel Jones. And now Daniel, was that from you? I
It
can't
was
remember if that
Braden.
was from you. It was
It was Braden.
Braden.
Yeah.
And to me, if I could go back and do that, I would do that 100 out of 100 times to get a player that I'm not going to start in a third or what looks like now. At the time that I made the trade, I can't remember exactly when I made the trade. Let's see, I'm pulling it up. I made that trade April 3rd. So that was before everything started coming out about Anthony Richardson's shoulder, that he wasn't even going to play. We kind of knew it was going to be a competition, but it was kind of assumed that it would be Anthony Richardson. But Daniel Jones has been really good in fantasy when he's been given the opportunity. He hasn't been a good regular quarterback, but he runs a lot. There's kind of that iconic, I can't remember when it was, when he broke
And
away
it
from
tripped.
everybody and he just tripped and face planted. But I mean, he's got wheels. He can run. And that's kind of the main thing I wanted to touch on before we get into your tiers is you do want to try to find guys that are going to be fantasy relevant. Part of it's you want to fill a roster spot, but somebody like Daniel Jones, if he has an opportunity, um, or I guess to back up, there's two ways that you're fantasy relevant. You're either on a good team, like a Sam Darnold last year, where you have lots of good weapons that you can throw to, or you're Daniel Jones and you can run. Being on a good team is more indicative of continued success. Like Sam Darnold actually got another contract because he played well. If Daniel Jones runs a lot, that doesn't mean he's going to get another contract. So those are kind of the two things I look for off the bat is potentially a good team or if you have some sort of running baseline to add.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Absolutely. You want to jump into the tiers?
Go for it.
Cool. I have three tiers of how I look at these backup quarterbacks that are probably floating around the bottoms of rosters and the waiver wire. You have tier one, which is your ambiguous rooms. This is the area where we expect to see some of the guys who are not at the top of the depth chart right now take over. We expect to see them get a shot. Tier two is your instant production. These are the guys that can come in and let's say you are in a rough bye week spot. You know what I mean? In week 14, I have Drake May and Brock Purdy both on bye week in a huge game against someone who I'll probably be. It's very realistic. We're playing for the last playoff spot that week, and I will not have a quarterback. So spots like that where you kind of need a guy to come in and fill a role, or you're selling to someone, hey, this guy will be able to come in and fill a role. That's my second tier, and it's in production. And then the third tier is my lottery tickets. Your Sam Darnold's, Sam Darnold more last year when he was with the Niners. Guys like Jordan Love kind of felt this way. I know Jordan Love was on a lot of waiver wires for a while. His starts that he got before Aaron Rodgers departed, he did not look like a good quarterback at all.
Hmm.
So those are kind of guys that maybe you do actually have something there. Um, so kicking off my first tier, I did a buy, hold, and a sell in every tier. In my first tier, ambiguous rooms, we probably won't spend a ton of time here because we've talked at length probably about a lot of these guys. I have Tyler Shuck at the top of this tier as my buy. I have Jackson Dart in the middle of this tier as my hold, and I have Shador Sanders in here as my sell. I'm buying Tyler Shuck because I think that his situation is better than we're giving it credit for. He's more talented than I think we're giving him credit for. And I think that there is absolutely a world where he performs well enough this year to give the Saints a second season. They give him a shot in another season. Maybe the offense gets a little better. And in that world where right now you're probably paying a mid-second if you're going and acquiring Tyler Shuck. In the world where he gets a second season with the Saints, he will be worth a lot more than that mid-second next offseason. That's why he's a buy. He's kind of like buying stock from that standpoint. Jackson Dart, I have as a hold. I did not really love Jackson Dart as a prospect. I don't believe that Jackson Dart is the future of the New York Giants franchise. But what I do know is that the Giants have a brutal schedule early in the season, and some people are projecting Jackson Dart to start as soon as week 6. And Jackson Dart right now, you probably can get for around the same amount that you can get Tyler Shuck for, maybe a little more. Um, so that's why I'm not buying him, is because he's about the same price. Uh, but he's not a sell because we know for a fact he is going to come in early in the
Yep.
season, and I think that's about the prime time to sell someone like Jackson Dart. Shador Sanders is an easy sell because he is a fifth round draft pick. Those do not work at the QB position. The NFL told us what they think about him as a talent. The Cleveland Browns told us what they think about the other quarterback in the room when they drafted him 2 rounds ahead of him. I think that there's probably still enough buzz around Shador Sanders being a top draft prospect in this offseason. There's probably someone who's willing to say maybe, someone willing to spend a 301 on a Shador Sanders. Um, and I think it's you get out while you can because I do not think that I don't think that he's going to rise in value from right now. I think this is likely the highest his value is going to be. What do you think about this range of guys?
I do agree. Jackson Dart was the one. I think you said it the exact same way I was going to say it, where I think he's a perfect hold right now. And then week 3, and Russ has thrown 0 touchdowns or 1 touchdown each of the first 3 weeks, and he's thrown at least 2 picks in each of the first 3 weeks. Fans are going to start to get antsy. The media is going to start to get antsy. They're going to say, "Where's Jackson Dart?" And then pretty soon you hear Jackson Dart's looking really good. Jackson Dart's going to start week 5, and then you can flip Jackson Dart for a first to some quarterback needy team, somebody who really believes in Jackson Dart, and then you essentially just flip to second for a first. Um, I think that's a really great thing to do. It is an ambiguous room though with rookies. You do tend to think if they have veterans like they do in New York right now, you tend to think that they're probably going to start out with the veterans because the one thing you can't do is start with the rookie and then go backwards. Bryce Young is definitely the exception to the rule. Like to get benched for Andy Dalton and then to come back in, you can't really put Jackson Dart out and then say, "Oh, I don't think he's ready," and then bench him for Russell Wilson. You can, however, put Russell Wilson out and bench him for Jackson Dart, and I think that's what's going to happen. So I would try to flip him. I think Tyler Shuck and Spencer Rattler are both good buys. Very end of the bench. Whichever one doesn't win the job, I think I'm not as big of a Shuck guy as you. I think whichever one doesn't win the job, you just cut because I don't think they're really either one of them are really that good. But if they're the starter, it's useful to have in a super flex league. And we've talked about Tyler Shuck before, and again, that's one of them that we just disagree on. But I do think you should buy him. I don't think I don't think I would pay a second, so maybe I wouldn't buy him. But I think definitely getting him on a roster is a good idea just to see what happens with that room. Then Shadur Sanders. I mean that to have 4 quarterbacks on your roster that I wouldn't be shocked if they came out and said they're starting week 1. Um, you're right. Just fifth round quarterbacks are not a bet to make. I would sell them for whatever you can, even if you can get a third rounder back. Like if you paid a third rounder for him and you can recoup a third rounder, great. You broke even and you don't have to watch Dion yell that his son isn't starting and then I don't even know if he's going to start this year. Anyways, I do agree with all three of these players.
I have an interesting question for you. Would you trade Spencer Rattler for a 2028 third round pick? We'll just say mid round pick.
Um, Man, I think I think I would either hold him just to I think if you hold him and he's the starter, you'd get more than a third rounder. I think at that low, a 2028 third, that's not very much. So I think I would just hold him. And if he doesn't get the starting job, I'd just cut him. He's a good cut during the offseason, pick somebody else up. Or if he is the starter, maybe flip him for a earlier third or maybe like a 28 second to a team that doesn't have a quarterback in week two. I don't think I would do it for a 28 third though. I think that's a little low. I think that's just a bet that I would take the other side of.
Would you do it for
Would
a
you?
2025? Yeah, I'd do. I'd take Fob. You don't draft a quarterback 3 rounds higher than the quarterback you drafted last year and got to see in games, and have that other quarterback be part of your plan moving forward. I
That's
would.
fair.
There are guys on the waiver wire who should be rostered over Spencer Rattler. Uh, But yeah, I did not have him in any segment here. I don't have him as a sell because I do not believe that most players are still rostering Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, I might be a little too high on him, which to be fair, I'm not very high on him at all. So being high on Spencer Rattler as like a quarterback 30, that's pretty low. But I think I would just hold on for now. Maybe I'll
Fair
drop
enough.
him and pick up Eckler. It's been this kind of weird thing in our dynasty league where Eckler is a guy that sits on the edge of my bench, and I think I picked him up and dropped him like 4 times this offseason. Anyways, I would rather have Rattler than Eckler. And I just looked it up. They haven't announced anything yet. There's good reports about both of them, bad reports about both of them. At this point, they're still competing for the job. I would expect to see both of them through the preseason. They're probably going to play most of the preseason, probably like alternate halves or something until they're finally ready to announce somebody. Or maybe they'll do it early. Maybe Shuck just beats him outright because that's very possible.
I think Spencer Rattler starts so, along the same vein of what you were saying about you can go from Rust to Jackson Dart and the fans will accept it. You can't go from Dart to Russ and have the
Hmm,
fans be happy about it. I think the same kind of applies,
I could see
not as
that.
heavily, obviously, but
Hmm.
I do think Spencer Rattler will start. I think it's a bad. I think obviously I'm out on Rattler anyway, but I think it's an even worse sign for Rattler if he doesn't start, if he does lose the job, because it is his job to lose still.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's interesting. I think you should take whatever you can get for him.
That's fair. All right, we're going to take a break and then we will be back with tier two.
Welcome back. The tier two, the instant production tier. I have three guys in this tier as well. My buy is Tyrod Taylor. My hold is Joe Milton. And my sell is Anthony Richardson. Tyrod
Hmm.
Taylor as my buy is someone you can get off the waiver wire. You do not have to go buy Tyrod Taylor, but I think you should roster Tyrod Taylor. Justin Fields is not a good quarterback, and we know that. And I do think he's going to start every game that he's healthy for the Jets. But I'm not 100% sure of that. I'm maybe 70% sure of that, maybe 75, 80% sure of that. I think there's a very real world where they need to fall back on a veteran who knows what he's doing. And Tyrod Taylor has been fine for fantasy when he has started. I think that if you get Tyrod Taylor right now, you could probably get him with a free bid off of your waiver wire. Maybe not after this pod drops and everybody knows that you got to go get Tyrod Taylor. No, but you could probably get him for free on your waiver wire right now. And I think that there is going to be a time in season where somebody needs a quarterback, someone is willing to give you maybe 10 to 20 fob for a quarterback. Maybe if you're lucky, you can get a draft pick out of not that I don't think that's very likely at all, but maybe a team that is in a pinch for a quarterback is willing to give you something for Tyrod Taylor, who maybe performs well behind that revamped offensive line. Um, and can run. And I guess he's a little old. He probably won't be doing as much running as Justin Fields would. But the offense is tailored around a rushing quarterback. So Tyrod Taylor's a buy because of how cheap he is, and I think you could end up turning him into something. Joe Milton is
Oh,
my hold. Sorry.
oh, I was just gonna go player by player. I was thinking we could talk about him. He's basically had Tyrod Taylor's had three fantasy relevant seasons. He's been in the league since 2011. That's crazy to me.
That's like 15
Um,
years.
Little fun fact, in 2014, he had negative point 0.3 fantasy points and was the quarterback 375. That's got to be a glitch with the 375. That's just funny. But in 15, 16, 17, he was the quarterback 16, 10, and 17. So he's one of those guys where you don't say, "Oh, good, I have Tyrod Taylor," if you're like a Jets fan. But if you're going into the week starting Tyrod Taylor, you're better than like the bottom five teams in the league, bottom 10. He's a decent buy. I think really this is kind of just banking on Justin Fields not being that good. And he's really good for fantasy. We love him for fantasy football. But yeah, Tyrod Taylor would be a good stash on the end of your bench. The only issue I would have with it is he can't go in your taxi squad because he's been in the league so long. Um, yeah, that's a good buy.
Yeah. Or hurt. If Justin Fields gets hurt, Tyrod Taylor will get a good run of games. I think that's in the range of outcomes as well. And someone who like if I tell you Patrick Mahomes went down, you're probably not excited to draft or to roster whoever's up next. I actually don't know off
I
the
think it's
top of my head.
Wentz.
Is it still Wentz? Okay, I
I
kind
think
of
so.
thought that sounds
Minshew?
right.
I think Minshew's there now too.
Minshew's funny. Okay, well maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Winshew should have made my rankings. But again, like not really. You're not really excited to.
Okay.
You
It's
can't really tell
Minshew and
yourself a
Bailey
story outside
Zappi.
of injury. Ugh. Yeah, those are kind of guys you can't tell yourself a story outside of an injury where you're
Yep.
getting a draft pick or even getting fob for one of these guys. You know what I mean? Joe Milton, on the other hand, he is my hold. I think that Joe Milton is not an NFL starting QB. That's not a hot take. I mean, he was a late round draft pick. He's more tools than he is anything else. But what we have seen from him is exciting preseason, a big win over the Bills backups in Week 18 last year, and some reasonable a reasonable path to fantasy production. I think that if I have Joe Milton, I'm holding him. Again, if he's on the wire, I'm very much considering picking him up. I'm probably picking him up before Tyrod Taylor, in all honesty. I just think that Joe Milton's probably rostered in more leagues. Um, Joe Milton is a guy that I think you hold him right until he gets an opportunity, if he is going to get one, and then when he's about to get his opportunity, maybe you even let him play a game. Maybe you let him stack up 18 fantasy points, and you hope nobody watched the game, and then you sell him. I think you could probably get a second round pick plus for Joe Milton if he plays one good game, going in for an injured Dak Prescott. I think that he's someone who will appreciate in value if he gets another opportunity.
So my gut take was that I didn't like this pick. I didn't like holding Joe Milton. Then I was looking into it a little bit. Their depth chart right now is Dak, Joe Milton, and Will Greer. So basically, if Dak goes down, Joe Milton is going to have as good a shot as any quarterback would to be the backup. And Dak, in his last few seasons, he's played 8 games, 17, 12, 16, 5. So if you just go red light, green light, he's due for a full season. But as he gets older, he's 31. I don't know. I don't remember when his birthday is, but anyways, he's on the other
Soon.
side
He's
of
he's about to
30.
be 32. He's going to be 32
Okay.
very soon. Yeah.
So he's going to play this season at 32. He has a history of getting hurt. I I tend to agree with that. You just hold him until Joe Milton gets a shot. Don't watch the game, and then you say, "Look at this quarterback 6 on the week, Joe Milton. Somebody come and get him." And then somebody who's desperate and didn't pay attention to the week says, "Oh, Joe Milton's available. I remember that guy. Yeah, I'll give you a third for him." And then you say, "Oh, I don't know if I could take a third." And then you say, "I guess I will." And then you dance. And then you do your dance in your bedroom because you're so happy that somebody paid you anything for Joe Milton. I think he's a great hold to flip at some point.
Yeah, the cool thing about Milton as opposed to Tyrod Taylor is that one, and again, I do think he's more expensive. I didn't check roster percentage before the episode like I did with one of our later guys, but I do think it's probably harder to acquire Joe Milton right now than Tyrod Taylor. But the cool thing about Tyrod Taylor is there's a decent chance that somebody in your league thinks there's a future for Joe Milton. There's no future for Tyrod Taylor. I believe he's 36,
Yep.
you said. There's no
Hmm.
future there. He is truly instant production, but Joe Milton is instant production and could potentially fit into the tier three of lottery tickets. But just because we think that he's a rushing threat with a bazooka arm, um, we think maybe you could get a little more in the short term for him.
So Milton's 67% rostered. He is currently
Okay.
rostered in our league.
Yes,
Um,
he is.
Mr. Fiesler has him. Yeah, because we talked about him in the taxi squad. This is how you know that we are truly a sweaty podcast. We have given Joe Milton airtime on 2 episodes.
Oh yeah.
Show me another podcast that's doing that.
Hell yeah. Love it. My number three
Um,
in the tier, the guy I did put lower than Tyrod Taylor and Joe Milton, is Anthony Richardson. I put him, he's only lower because he's the sell of the buy hold sell. Obviously he's probably more valuable right now than either of the other two. But that's my point, is it's time to cash out. If he maybe not right this instant, maybe you wait and see if he's taking reps in preseason or if maybe he's projected to get the week one start. Um, I even if he's not, I'm okay selling Anthony Richardson for anything that you could get right now. Anthony Richardson is, I don't believe he's going to work in the NFL. And I think that if you could get something for him, I don't think there's going to be a time where you're looking at that and regretting it. I think that there's a time where you're probably not getting a lot right now. It's probably league to league. I think there's leagues that wouldn't trade a third for him, and I think there's maybe leagues where you could still get a high second for him. But whatever you could get, I think it's time to get out. I think the odds of him being a valuable fantasy asset in 2 years, I think that that ship has sailed.
I think one of my bigger victory lap plays was last year. Everybody was buying the Anthony Richardson hype that he was going to be a big breakout, and I've never been in on him, even though he should be good for fantasy when he's on the field because he can run and he has an absolute cannon of an arm. There was a play that I remember during last preseason where he like rolled out to his right, planted perpendicular to the target, and threw a flat-footed pick six. And I was like, his career is done. I was looking it up to see if there was any news on him. Um, there really isn't. There's a report floating a trade to the Steelers next year. That doesn't really make sense to me. The Colts are predicted to cut ties for Drew Aller, doing like a mock draft next year. Um, I mean, everything is just bad. Like
Even
all
if he didn't,
news, even if he
yeah.
didn't what?
Even if he didn't suck, he's still injury prone. Even if he wasn't a horrible quarterback, he's still not going to see the field all that much because he sustains injuries. Yeah, it's all bad.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. His injury is in his throwing shoulder too, and it's carried over from last year. This isn't a new injury that he's never had. He played on it last year, wasn't good, and he still has the shoulder injury. And a shoulder injury, just in case you were curious, for a quarterback is absolutely awful. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that people end their careers over. Like where Drew Brees says he has to play catch with his kid left-handed because his right arm doesn't work. That's the kind of thing that you're looking at with Anthony Richardson, and he's only 3 years into his career. Is he 3 or 2?
But he's going into year three.
That's crazy. I mean, like when he was drafted at 4 by the Colts, it was like the sky's the limit. And then we see him for a couple of games. He had some really big fantasy games. And then coming into last offseason, everybody's like, could he be the next Josh Allen? Could he be the next one? To now you can't even sell him for a third. I mean, that's a historic meteoric fall off. I agree. Just get out whatever you can get for Anthony Richardson, just sell it. Move on, cut your losses, free up a roster spot, and go pick up Joe Milton off the waivers or Tyrod Taylor off the waivers, whatever you can do.
Yeah, Tyrod Taylor off waivers for Anthony Richardson is pretty disgusting. Like, and I guess that's what we've advocated for. And maybe I'd say don't do that yet. Maybe I'd say try to get something for Anthony Richardson first before you dump him to the waivers for Tyrod Taylor.
I would
Um,
agree.
but yeah,
Hold on to the
at
name value
cost
and
is
try to
just
get something.
anything. Jumping into tier three are the lottery ticket guys, the guys who maybe are like your Jordan Love, maybe are like your Sam Darnold of last year, guys that you're really hoping, maybe not really hoping, but hoping can flash something. Maybe they're a little better than a 36-year-old Tyrod Taylor. Maybe they're a little more talented than like an Anthony Richardson. They probably won't have the same immediate impact of those instant production guys. But guys that you think that these are guys that maybe I do still have a buy, hold, and a sell, but maybe you're holding a little longer than some of the other guys to see if maybe they actually can truly work out and truly be a starting level NFL quarterback. Obviously, the odds are small, but turning a waiver wire pick into a starting quarterback is maybe one of the best things that you can do for your team in Dynasty, just in terms of value added to your team. It's huge. I'm kicking it off with Mac Jones as my buy. This is the one that I looked up roster percentages for. He's rostered in 43% of Dynasty leagues. I think that we've seen a little bit of a trend over the past few years of like early first round quarterbacks getting a second chance on a new team and maybe it looking better after they have a few more years to develop as a backup. Guys like obviously Sam Darnold, Jared Goff. Obviously, when Sean McVay came in LA, he was good, but then he kind of got flushed away for Matthew Stafford. You know, they traded Jared Goff and two firsts to get Matthew Stafford, which tells you how much Jared Goff was worth. He's having a great career now in Detroit. Think about guys like Baker Mayfield. And I think that it's possible that the next one of those could be Mac Jones. He has an eerily similar path to Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold went and backed up Brock Purdy for a year, looked serviceable in his starts, and then went off somewhere and got one more shot and looked very good. I'm not saying Mac Jones is going to get an opportunity next year. I'm not even, and even if he does, like it has to be a good opportunity for it to look like a Sam Darnold reclamation project. But Sam Darnold moved this offseason for considerable value in our Dynasty League. He was drafted fairly high in a startup I did this offseason. And I don't remember how much Sam Darnold was collected for off the waiver wire, but I imagine he was on the waiver wire for a while. Um, I think that Mac Jones could end up being fantasy relevant again. Um, and I think that he's worth a bottom of the roster spot in that eventuality.
Yeah, I think the key with Sam Darnold is he got dropped into Kevin O'Connell, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. A good run. They had a really good running game last year, a really, really good offensive line, great defense. And like when you get dropped in and Addison is your wide receiver two, there's teams that would kill to have Addison as their wide receiver one. He's a good receiver. And then you have the best receiver in football. Like you can't get a better opportunity than Sam got. And he took advantage of it. They won a lot of games last year. And it's kind of this um it's a trend right now in the NFL where you see Sam Darnold do that. You see, oh man, where was I going with that? Yeah, you see these teams moving, like with Baker. Everybody thought he was dead on the Browns or on the Panthers. He went, I actually forgot about that. He went to the Panthers and then he went to the Rams on that Thursday night game where he flew into the team on like Tuesday or Wednesday, and started the game for him. So we're seeing that coaching really does matter. You have these really talented guys that early in their career had bad coaching. They're kind of getting reclaimed under Kevin O'Connell or Sean McVay, and then they're getting better and they're getting opportunities to go. And you hope the Mac Jones is the next in line there. I mean, Daniel Jones kind of looks like he might be the next in line. If he can beat out Anthony Richardson, then maybe there's some hope for his career. Maybe not. But yeah, I think Mac Jones is a good buy, end of the roster guy. I don't think, what would you pay for him? Would you trade for him actively?
We go to break and I'll answer that question when we get back.
Okay. So I think the big thing with Mac Jones is you saw that coaching really matters in the NFL. You had Baker come into the league. He had, I think it was like 6 straight seasons with an offensive coordinator change. He looked bad on the Panthers. He didn't he looked okay with the Rams. That was kind of just that one week that he looked really, really good on Thursday night. But you saw like Baker went to Sean McVay, and then he goes and he's under Dave Canales and then Liam Cohen. Like he completely turned his career around now to the point where we think of Baker Mayfield as like a franchise guy for the Buccaneers. You saw that last year with Sam Darnold. He was in the best situation you could have, where you have Justin Jefferson, the best receiver in the league. You have Jordan Addison, who as a wide receiver too is absolutely nuts. I mean, that's you don't get to go into a situation as good as having Addison and Jefferson and Hawkinson, a good run game, an elite play caller, an elite offensive line. That just doesn't happen. So I think if Mac Jones can learn for a year under Shanahan and then go to a team, he won't get as good of a team as the Vikings, but if he can go to a team that he can at least compete and have a couple weapons, I'm thinking maybe the Giants if they have like a really good offensive coordinator and he has Malik Neighbors or something like that where there's at least hope. I think the Mac Jones could be viable. Again, it's a ways out. I don't, what would you trade for Mac Jones?
I wouldn't trade anything at this point in time for Mac Jones. It's such a
Okay.
low percentage bet. I'm not comfortable. I mean, he was on the waiver wire and I didn't roster him just because my roster is extremely deep. I didn't have someone I could put on the wire for him. But there are plenty of teams in our league, and I'm sure in our listeners' leagues who could drop him. I mean, we're talking about we talked a couple weeks ago about taxi squad and some of the guys that are on rosters, right? I mean, shoot, we talked about Spencer Rattler not too long ago. And I actually that's a good point. I think that you should drop Spencer Rattler and go pick up Mac Jones.
All right, I've got a list of guys that we got Tyrod Taylor, we got Mac
Mm.
Jones. We'll see if any of these any of the rest of these guys tell me about Will Howard. Well, let's see if I need to drop Spencer Rattler for him.
Will Howard's interesting because I think he fits just outside of what the Sam Darnold situation is. I think that he has the elite head coach. I think that he has a serviceable, at worst, offensive line. The weapons are not entirely there, you know what I mean? But you do have Aaron Rodgers as a placeholder. You get to sit beside behind him, even if he's not the best teacher and mentor. You get to watch and learn for a year, which I think is really beneficial to these young guys. Just the exposure before you really get fed to the wolves is important. I don't think that Will Howard is going to be a long-term starting quarterback in the league. I would bet heavily against the fact that he has a Sam Darnold-esque year, but we're not always chasing a Sam Darnold-esque. Like, obviously, we want the Sam Darnold year with the lottery ticket quarterbacks, but he was, I believe, like what, the QB 5 or 6 last year. I think that maybe if Will Howard is just a bad quarterback, just a quarterback who's good enough to kind of stick around, maybe like late career Derek Carr, good enough to stick around and keep a job, but like you're not really going to win anything with him. That's still extremely valuable in fantasy football, especially Superflex. So I think that's more of what you're hoping to get out of Will Howard. And he's a hold for me. I think he's probably rostered in a lot of leagues because he's a rookie. He's a rookie that went to the
Hmm.
Steelers before they got Aaron Rodgers. So he's probably on a lot of rosters right now. I'm not dumping him. I'm probably not. I say probably not. I might take a third for him. He's closer to that. You say you wouldn't take a third because you think you might be able to get a second out of Rattler. I think Will Howard is a better example of that than Spencer Rattler. I think the odds of him being able to get a second eventually um, are higher than Spencer Rattler's.
Hmm. I think outside of an Aaron Rodgers injury, there's no way he sniffs the field this year. Now with Aaron at the end of his career, injury is not necessarily a bad bet. I would just rather have Rattler where he's actively competing for the spot. Will Howard is not competing for the spot this year, and I think next year I don't even think he really gets a shot to compete. I think he's more there in break glass in case of emergencies. If Aaron Rodgers goes down, they at least can maybe plug him in. But going forward, I don't think he's part of their long-term future. I would try to sell him as hard as I could. Um, he's kind of the product of being on a really good team. I don't think he really elevated that Ohio State team. They just have some insane athletes all around him at the offensive line. It's kind of been an issue with Ohio State quarterbacks for a while, is that when you're playing with three future round one receivers, your entire offensive line is is massive. They're basically NFL talent. You have Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins behind you. You're gonna look pretty good because there's really nothing you can do that's super bad. They obviously had a really good team. Um, I just don't believe in him in this system. I don't think he's gonna really ever get a good shot. I'm on the other side of that. I would sell. I don't think you can sell for much. So if you want to just hold on the off chance that something happens, that's really what we're going for here. I mean, we aren't saying that any of these guys are guaranteed hits. Like Mac Jones, we're
Yes,
not saying
absolutely.
go aggressively buy Mac Jones for when he breaks out. This is saying like if he's on waivers, pick him up for zero fab. Same with Will Howard. I think that one's if you drafted him or picked him up after drafts, just hold on to him. I guess maybe I flip back on that just because I don't think you can really sell him for what he could turn into.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really what we're doing here is just giving ourselves clippable content if any of these do end up working out,
Exactly.
they'll be good promo for the show. If you're still
Exactly.
watching right now, you know that we're taking a more balanced approach, these are bottom of your roster guys, lot we call them lottery tickets, but oh, trust me, I'll be clipping my Mac Jones statements if he does anything in the next 3 to 5 years, like I'll be trying to get TikToks viral.
Yeah, I expect a text in about 2 years and be like, "Do you remember? Oh man, what show was that we talked about Mac Jones? He's elite now." I looked it up. Sam Darnold was quarterback 9 last year,
Okay,
so
so not as high as I thought, but
he wasn't even really that high.
A top 10 quarterback is still a top 10 quarterback. You know what I mean? If that's your
For
QB2,
Superflex, yeah,
yeah. I think
yeah,
most dynasty leagues are super flex or 2 QB.
yeah. So I listen to the fantasy footballers quite a bit, and they actually get kind of annoyed. Apparently, the Superflex people are obnoxious online. They really like Superflex, and they're like, there is dynasty and redraft other than Superflex. So I think a lot of people do still like one quarterback. I think for Dynasty League, it makes a lot of sense to have two just because it involves more players and it makes quarterbacks worth more. Because you get to the situation where in a one quarterback Dynasty League, Sam Darnold isn't really that valuable, but in a super flex, he's super valuable. Like he goes for a first. So I just think it gives more players value and that just makes it more fun in my opinion. But anyways, quarterback 9, I think that's fine.
And it makes the most important players more valuable. It makes the quarterback
Yep.
position reflect what the quarterback position is in the league, which is what we're chasing in fantasy football. We still want it to reflect some form of true football. You know what I mean? I'm a
Yep.
super flex truther. You can't play dynasty one QB. That's the wrong way to do it.
I would agree with that.
Um, oh, before I jump into my next one, I have a $5 FUB bet proposal for you.
Okay.
Um, Will Howard versus Spencer Rattler. We'll just do the sum of their snap percentage in 2025. I think that Will
Okay.
Howard, I think Will Howard plays more snaps. Obviously, it's very easy on Sleeper to look at the percentage as opposed to their actual offensive snaps. But
Mhm.
snap percentage, I'll take Will Howard against Spencer Rattler.
I'll take that bet.
All right, sweet. We'll get it written in the show doc, and then maybe we'll talk about it if we do a recap show.
Yeah.
Launching into my
Big
next one, I
money.
have a sell here. And it's kind of in line with everything else we've talked about. We have Sam Howell here as my sell. Sam Howell is in the system that saw um, Sam Darnold see great success last year. Sam Howell can run the football. Sam Howell can throw the ball all over the yard. Sam Howell is someone who, if and specifically to the JJ McCarthy owner, JJ McCarthy is coming off a knee injury. It's not hard to tell yourself the story of how Sam Howell starts 8 to 10 games this year. And if you're telling that story to somebody about how maybe if he starts some games and maybe he looks good, maybe he gets a contract like Sam Darnold does, maybe his value goes up by next offseason. That's the story I'm trying to tell in order to get a trade to go through now. The part that I've left off is that Sam Howell sucks. He's not a good quarterback. So um, he's one of the guys, get out while you can. Obviously, it's also very possible he never sees the field with the Vikings because of JJ McCarthy. So a little bit thinner of a bet there. That's why I don't have him as a hold because it's not guaranteed he gets that shot. Again, this is a take whatever you can get. Sam Howell should be on most waiver wires. I think he is in our
Hmm.
league. If he's not, then I should be clowning whoever
He
owns him.
is.
Okay. But yeah, Sam Howell. if you could pick up and flip Sam Howell to somebody, that would be. It's very thin. I don't know if you'll be able to do it, but he is in tier three of backup quarterbacks, so we're kind of running out of road here.
He's he's rostered in 47% of leagues,
More than
starting
Mac
in
Jones is
1%.
psychotic. More rostered more than Mac Jones is bothersome. Wholly
I
bothersome.
think so. I don't know how they do this. This might include dead leagues because if you started in 1%, I went back and if you remember, he played the whole season in 2023. I
Mhm.
think he was sacked an absurd amount of times. Like he just got killed basically the whole year. But he played 17 games and he was the PPR quarterback 12. So my guess is that 1% is dead leagues that
It must
died
be.
after the 23 season and
Yeah.
never, I don't know how they get that metric. Anyways, yeah, I would sell or drop Sam Howell. Honestly, I don't think you're going to get anything for Sam Howell unless you play in a league with a bunch of Vikings fans. So if you're listening in Minneapolis right now, there's a chance that you could maybe get 5 fab for Sam Howell. You probably could have when he was the Seahawks starter from a lot of the guys in our league got like 5 fab for him.
He
Um,
moved. He got traded a couple times in our league. It was insane.
I know, where I was like, what are you guys doing? This is not even a starter. Um, yeah, I would sell him or cut him. Then you have some honorable mentions in here too. Riley Leonard and Jimmy G.
Yeah, I
Want to
literally
quickly go
added
over
Jimmy
those?
G. I literally just added him like 5 minutes ago as we were talking about the Sean McVay and like you were talking about how amazing the Vikings situation was last year. I think that the Rams are a better situation for a quarterback because I think Sean McVay is the truth as far as head coaches go. I finished my head coach rankings not too long ago. I put Sean McVay as the single best. As a Niners fan, I put him as the best head coach in the
Yep,
NFL.
I would
Um,
agree with that.
Jimmy Garoppolo could come in and be serviceable. He could be. I mean, and we saw what he was in San Francisco. San Francisco, he went to a Super Bowl.
Yep.
I'm sure he was very. I wasn't playing dynasty at the time, but I'm sure he was a valuable quarterback asset then. There's no reason to believe uh, that if a 37-year-old Matthew Stafford is cooked, and maybe he gets an extra season or something along those lines, it's easy to see him gaining value. Riley Leonard, I had as an honorable mention because he is the archetype of quarterback that the Colts have looked for. We talked a little bit about how Anthony Richardson flashed early on when he was with the Colts. I remember this, like, I remember him being talked about going into the next season as like a dark horse MVP candidate, just because, like, I think his fantasy points per drop back were led the NFL the year prior in the 4 games he played in. And Riley Leonard kind of fits the archetype, hyper athletic guy, maybe not the best as far as an arm talent goes, but maybe if you give him a chance to sit behind both Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, you kind of get your 6 weeks of both of those guys out of the way before the fan bases can't take it anymore. And then Riley Leonard comes in and he's athletic enough to run the offense. And maybe Shane Steichen is able to insulate him in a way that he was able to for like Jalen Hurts a little bit early in that Eagles run with Jalen Hurts. You could see a world where he's a lottery ticket. You could see him gaining some steam. Worth rostering, I
Jimmy
think,
Gar
in deep leagues.
Jimmy Garoppolo, he played a full season in 2019 and 2021. He was the quarterback 14 in 2019 and 17 in 2021. So at that point, that's a player that you can play in a Superflex league if he's starting. He's not gonna win you the week, but he's not gonna go out and lose you the week. He played one game last year for the Rams in 24, and in that one game, it was week 18 against Seattle. And I don't remember the implications of what everybody was playing for, but he got 21 fantasy points. He was 41 attempts, 27 completions, 334, and two with one pick. Um, he's a serviceable quarterback, and I would agree with you that Sean McVay is at the top. I mean, he's in his 40s now, and he's been coaching for like 10 years, and he's been arguably the best quarterback or the best coach that entire time. Really the only argument to me at that point is Andy Reid, and I would rather have the 40-year-old than the 65-year-old. But eh,
Andy Reid has Mahomes, man. At the end of the day, like, I mean, McVay, sorry, I lost his name for a second. McVay dragged Jared Goff's bum ass to a Super
that's
Bowl.
true.
Like, I just, yeah, I mean, yes, but I'm absolutely willing to hear out that Andy Reid is. I think that they play off of each other really well. I think that I think that Mahomes is going to be wonderful for Andy Reid's legacy, and Reid is going to be wonderful for Patrick Mahomes' legacy. And we'll never have to ask the questions about, who was who. Or maybe we will. I mean, we had the same exact conversations about Brady and Belichick, and we saw Belichick struggle mightily without Brady. Yeah, I think maybe some of that exists in Kansas City. But I digress.
I think Reed probably hangs it up before Mahomes, though. I think that's going to be in my
Mm,
opinion, that's the difference. Is I think like when Tom Brady retired, he left Belichick there to fend for himself, and even before when he left for Tampa, Mahomes is going to play for another 10 years. I don't think Andy Reid coaches for another 10. I think probably if they make another Super Bowl this year, I think probably Andy Reid and Kelsey retire.
wow, that'd be insane. That'd be
That'd be a lot
wild.
of
You think that
turnover. Then maybe Nagy
and
gets his second shot.
oh
Oh,
man.
really at
Everyone
that
who
point, it's
doesn't
just get
live
out
in
of
Kansas
Mahomes'
City is
way.
so happy about that.
Just get out of Mahomes' way. If Nagy just lets Mahomes have his run his offense, then I think Nagy's going to be a great head coach. If he keeps Spags, or maybe they'll just promote Spags to head coach. I don't know. That's getting way down a rabbit hole. But I think Jimmy G in that Rams offense, he gives me hope for Puka. I think because with Puka, there's kind of this nagging worry about Stafford. I think if Jimmy G is the stopgap for a year or two, then I feel really confident with Puka for the next 3 years. Riley Leonard, I he was probably drafted or picked up right after your draft. I don't think I would roster him. Um, yeah.
Roster him before Spencer Rattler, I tell you that.
Oh man, yeah, that Spencer Rattler versus Riley Leonard five fab bet. That's some really
I love
scooping
getting
stuff.
bets off. I love getting season long fob bets off. I already have zero fob for this upcoming year. I can't wait to be right back in that boat on day one of the new league year.
Yeah, when you're just firing off trades where you're giving away fab.
Good episode. Good episode. If you hear
Yeah,
one thing, it's that Mac Jones is going to be the next Patrick Mahomes when Reed retires. And that's about all you need to know.
exactly. That's really the only fantasy take you need to take away. All
Well,
right. Well, we'll be back next week. I don't know. We don't have a plan for next week, but I'm sure it's going to be an absolutely amazing episode.
hopefully you're as sweaty as we are, and this wasn't an absolute snooze fest. We'll probably have something even worse, like backup left guards and why they affect your running backs next week.
Here you go. See you
All
next
right.
week.